Alright, so it's now been more than a year since Baldur's Gate 3 officially released, and happy anniversary to Larian and the Baldur's Gate 3 team for delivering such an insanely amazing game. Now, as a small celebration together with the community, Larian went ahead and released a bunch of stats, and some of them are pretty interesting, to say the least. So we're going to start off with the origin characters here. We can see that Astarion is in the lead with 1.21 million Astarions created as, as a playable character. Then we got Gale at 1.2 million, which is pretty close. And then we have Shadowheart at 860,000. Players who actually played as Shadowheart this past year. And then, however, over 93% of players chose to play as a custom avatar, with 15% of those players picking Dark Urge. So the overwhelming majority, of course, played as a Tav. That's a relatively small amount that actually played through the Dark Urge. Doesn't really surprise me because the Dark Urge is a pretty dark playthrough. Of course, it's very much like any other playthrough of any of the other origin characters, but there are some things that vary very differently. For the top class picks, we of course have the Paladin, which is absolutely overpowered in certain builds. Then we have Sorcerer close behind, Fighter, Barbarian, Rogue, Warlock, Bard, Wizard, Monk, Druid, Ranger, and Cleric. It's pretty surprising that the Ranger isn't last. I thought that would be the last. I thought Cleric would be more popular because of the Tempest Cleric and stuff. Top race picks, we have Elf, Half-Elf, Humans, Tieflings, Drow, Dragonborn, Half-Orc, Githyanki, Dwarf, Gnome, and Halfling. Again, kind of makes sense here. Everybody loves elves. Everybody wants to play as an elf in every RPG or fantasy game ever. Surprised that humans are actually that far up, because generally I would think that a lot of people would feel like they want to try something else, but I guess a lot of you are just vanilla ass bitches just like me.
Pure vanilla.
Going over some more silly facts here, Scratch was petted over 120 million times, the least he deserves for his perfect fetch record. How could you not pet Scratch every time you meet up with him? I mean, he's a good doggo. Every good doggo deserves a good Scratch. Owlbear Cub was petted over 41 million times. That's why we have two hands, after all. Very true. That's a third of how many people actually scratched Scratch. I wonder if this is like 1/3, perhaps, of people managed to recruit the Owlbear Cub, because a lot of people seem to be missing out on the fact that you can actually have him as a pet as well. We have 141,660 players that attempted to pet His Majesty. Lesson learned. I can't remember if I actually tried to pet His Majesty. The thing is, I've only found him once. I don't remember where he is. And didn't they change His Majesty as well? He had fur before and they changed him. Or well, they changed him to have fur and then they changed him back to a naked cat again. Wasn't that the case? Getting into some romance and stuff here, we have Shadowheart as a leader here. Over 75 million companion kisses. That's a lot of smooching. Shadowheart is the leader with 27 million kisses, obviously, best girl. Astarion is next with 15 million kisses, best boy. Then we have Minthara comes last with 169, nice, 937 kisses. That's surprising. Wow, that's a tiny amount of people that actually romanced Minthara. I gotta get shout out to Minthara. You guys are missing out if you haven't actually tried romancing Minthara. She has a pretty good romance arc. She has a pretty good character arc after Act 1, that is, in case, she survives, because you can recruit her into your team, in case you didn't know. Again, a reminder, you can recruit Minthara. And now you don't actually have to necessarily slaughter the tieflings at the camp anymore to do that, just so you know. In the Act 1 celebration night, 32.5% of players spent the night with Shadowheart. 13.5% of players got hot with Karlach. Nice choice of words there. 15.6% of players slept alone. It's not you, it's them. They have standards.
It's not you understand. It's me. I have standards.
For Act 3, 48.8% of players experienced Shadowheart's final romance scene. That's a pretty big amount. Okay, that makes a lot of sense because of the Shadowheart hysteria that has been going on. That's almost half of players actually getting to her final arc of a romance. That's impressive, actually. 17.6% of players had a romantic dinner with Karlach. Good on ya. 12.9% of players held hands with Lae'zel. 658,000 players had had some fun with Halsin. 70% got down and dirty with his human form, and 30% chose the bear. Damn. It's like over 200,000 people who are secretly furries. But then again, you'd barely see the scene. Barely, because they cut away from it. The 1.1 million players got down with the Emperor. Holy! 63% of players chose Dream Guardian form. We get it. Denial is a powerful motivator because you can actually sleep with the Emperor, and the Emperor keeps this, the dream form that you've gotten to know throughout the game. 30% discovered the sensual pleasure of Mind Flayer tentacles. Well, if tentacles are your thing, whatever floats your boat. Then we're closing in on some stuff about Act 3 here. 1.9 million players were turned into a cheese wheel, while 3.5 million players paid a visit to some friendly dinosaurs. Obviously, I mean, how could you not? They're dinosaurs. 2 million players freed us from the colony. 377,000 dark urges figured out a way to spare Alfira and are now directly to blame for the proliferation of loot rock. I actually never found out a way to, I don't know how to make sure that she survives. I haven't even looked it up. And then we get to the ending stats, right? 1.8 million players betrayed the Emperor after all he did for you. The thing is, I've always felt like he just manipulates you up until the very point where he reveals everything. And I actually tried being somewhat of an asshole towards him to make sure that he spills the beans slowly. The thing is, he gets really mad and just kind of drops the act. I understand if you betray the Emperor, because that's what I did on my first playthrough as well. I just did not trust him. I didn't. 329,000 players convinced Orpheus to live as a Mind Flayer. Tentacles are in this year. Anyway, I'm among those players as well. Sorry. To any Githyanki fans out there, but I didn't want to sacrifice my beautiful form, and I didn't want to sacrifice any of my companions as well, so I was like, yeah, come on, Orpheus, you can do it. You're technically supposed to be dead. For all we knew, he was supposed to have been dead a long time ago, but 3.3 million players killed the Netherbrain. That's impressive. How many people actually finished Baldur's Gate 3? 200,000 of those had Gale blow himself up to do it. El Minister approved. 34 players, that's an incredibly low amount. Playing as Avatar Lae'zel chose to, themselves at the end of the game after Blackith rejected their ascension. You read that right. Another part to the ending here, epilogues. 1,498 players hugged God Gale goodbye. He has to go. His planet needs him. Should we say his plane needs him? His dimension needs him? 1.1 million players gave Halsin a hug. We bet he smells like moss and wet dog. I think so too, honestly.
How dare you?
2,185 God Gales chose to transform Tara into a hairless cat. Why would you do that to her? So is that when you play through as Gale as an origin character? Interesting. 54,000 players petted Tara. Dozens of pigeons watched on in horror. Good stuff. I'm among one of those 54,000 players. Maybe a lot of people just didn't find Tara. That might have been the case because she's up on a roof in Baldur's Gate. And then we have Honor Mode. 141,660 players conquered Honor Mode. That's also just kind of a tiny amount, because 1,223,305 playthroughs ended in defeat. So there were quite a lot of people who actually tried Honor Mode but hasn't, actually finished it. So maybe more than 10% actually managed to finish it. 76% of these 1,200,000 honorably deleted their save game. 24% continued their adventure in custom mode. I gotta say, I love when Larian does this, when they release these funny little facts and, other community-driven things. It's just so enjoyable, having this sort of almost close-knit group of players that are just, enjoying the hell out of Baldur's Gate. I wonder what this is gonna look like a year from now, because we also have the upcoming patch 7 that comes out in not too long. Now, I also want to remind you guys that Larian has been pretty generous and sent out even more invitations to the closed beta of patch 7. So if you want to try it out, remember to check your emails for this, because you will be getting an email in case you are invited to the closed beta. Go check your Steam as well to see if you have access to it there. Now, again, this is just completely random, so there are no guarantees to getting in on the closed beta, but just as a reminder, again, check your emails. But that's going to be it for today. Remember to subscribe for more Baldur's Gate 3 news or Larian news or other RPG news, and as always, have a great day. Mr. Alton, signing out.